All right, hello, everybody. Welcome for another Monday. Let's give a time for everybody to join in, get some tea, and we'll be starting shortly. Crazy weekend, crazy day. Let's see if we have anybody. We'll see if we have anybody joining. Surprise me. Which I think. So just change the schedule for Wednesday for me. So that's hopefully all taken care of for now. Let's kill it, and I'll deal with that later. And time to open up Literary Universe and continue our reading. So it's the third part of The Great House. It's been a while since we started, and who knows, hopefully this will be the, well, hopefully, sadly, that always depends on how you look on things. But hopefully this will be our last one from the reading part, so that we can start more of a discussion. And later on, and I'm not thinking. Yes, we went and are finished at chapter 12. So let me go and present. Of course, I want the entire screen. There we go. Let me zoom up a bit. And let's go full screen. So, personal decisions. Another effect of daring up and living in the great house is that personal decisions on big topics will be more involved, be it selection of school, profession, or on marriage partner. There will be a much wider pool for consultation, and consideration on effects on family will be much higher. The biggest difference is for the matriarch and patriarch when they will be giving advice on and consultation. When doing so, they should offer two. One which takes into account the house situation, needs, and wants, and second, from the personal perspective. So this kind of goes back to, say, it's, being involved, big house or the great house, of when it comes to personal decision, just by the very, very nature of things, is going to provide you, say, the necessary background, or it will gonna push you more as an individual towards some specific career choices, towards, as I mentioned, the schools and so on. So, and it might be sometimes, especially for those who really want to be more individualistic and don't want other people to be involved in their business as much. In some cases, it will be just annoying, but the main purpose of this or integrate house is to kind of offer kind of more people that you can go to ask for help and advice. That's the that's kind of the initial help there. And then of course then kind of offering, especially for the matriarch and patriarch, which should be also sought out. That's one of like their responsibilities, to provide advice, or maybe if not advise themselves directly, uh, kind of know who they should send that person to give an advice. So the child, hey, I am having, I need some advice, or I could use some help deciding on which school should I go to. Then you know they can then go, okay, I'm not that knowledgeable in the profession you want to pursue, but this uncle over here, this is his profession, so uh, go in and ask him, and he'll be able to give you good advice. So that's where this comes. So that's kind of one side of the advice, to kind of provide the personal advice, or send you to someone who can provide that, better advice than themselves. Um, Part of also that kind of this also hints that part of being patriarch and matriarch is being able to suppress your ego and be able to do what's the best for the family in that aspect. And the second part of the advice is kind of give from the perspective of the family, uh, to yes, so that they can okay, if you go to this school abroad, this is this is going to have a repercussion and impact on the family. What are at least preliminary your plans? Do you plan to stay in that country, or do you plan to come back? Right? If you plan to stay in that country, uh, for example, this could be one of the ways of, because you don't necessarily want to have all your eggs in one basket, or like all the family necessarily in one big location. So this, if somebody goes abroad for studies, and they want to then, for example, stay there, this could be a good opportunity. They two options, like I don't want to be that involved with my family, so one of the reasons also I'm going abroad is so that I can kind of get my distance, breathe a bit more, and then I might come back and get involved again, or I might just stay there, or I want to go there because it's the best decision for my studies, for me personally, and I will most likely stay there because of professional reasons. So, and then is the option, okay, why not start, because you're most likely going to get married there and all that stuff, or myriad of many options that can transition can happen. But in this case, can be okay. Maybe we'll start a branch of the family that will be in that location. And if you kind of have different branches of the family across the world, or just even like inside the country, if something happens in one place, then it's much more easier to utilize family members in another location to move there. But that's also good that you need to maintain the great house, maintain the relationships, because if you don't make the relationship, it would be kind of strange if you few generations down, or say 20 years later you showed up with the family, and it just would not work. So that's that. And also, given that you grew up in the house, and if everything is going well with already in previous streams mentioned, uh, you know teachings and all that stuff, you will be able to, uh, of course, you will be influenced by the family values and other things in the family, and when it comes to your decision making, personal decision making, and but you'll also be able then to provide others, and it should be, it's not it should not be stifling. That's the uh, big thing, and it's always necessary to think of how do because it's always all the people are different. So for some, this will be great house will be amazing and they will love it. I would say, given the inclinations of what I've seen across the world, will be great for many people. But there are a lot of people who want to have any part in it, and they just want to be kind of be alone and uh, by themselves, kind of away from everybody, and that needs to be also kind of accounted for as well and allowed for that to happen. Otherwise, it's just going to create bad blood, and it's not going to get pretty. And big thing is that it's sometimes it just doesn't work out, and you don't want to have the family should be helpful. Sometimes yes, it's going to be annoying with some family members, but you don't want it to become that it's painful for the people to be involved. So any questions on this area or discuss? Seeing a few people jumped in. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Don't be shy. Say hi in the chat. So that I know that you're not just a bot or AI. And we'll jump to the next chapter. So speaking of pain and annoyances, internal politics. This is, and it's not just, you could say internal politics and politics. I mean, not just, as we kind of think of politics in the traditional sense, but, internal relations and managing things to work properly. So let's take a look at what I have written here. Like any human gathering, there is going to be forming of cliques and factions. There are rivalries and other emotions which can complicate any situation. Families make things complicated for many because you are stuck with those people for life. In an ideal scenario, one could think of Great House as a big then political party. There might be internal divisions and fractions, but at the end of the day, they work together to achieve goals. And I'd say big political parties with barbecues and a lot of good stuff. And at the end of the day, hopefully not that much of a strife. But let's go on. Like in any family, individuals will need to learn to navigate and live with these circumstances. The annoying uncle, the doting grandmother, and other personalities that you can encounter in human society. Ideally, through the focus and upbringing and shared values, many of these issues can be smoothed over. Another big thing is to be relaxed and take things easy. This is something that I think people might think, oh, this is super regimental, specifically ordered how one should live, their lives, and you can just associate any negative values with it, but that's not the case. After all, it's worth it to get it is worth it to get work up about little issues. Okay, so this should be it is not worth it. Is it okay? Yeah. So it's a question here. Is it worth it to get work up about little issue or minor differences? It can even become a point of fun. For example, if you have an uncle who constantly goes on about government abuses or crises to the world, it can become a point of entertainment, but it might be a better idea to utilize the suspicious brain and turn it to productive means. In this case, to assign him to do more research and establish contingency plans for the family to review. After all, history is full of catastrophes and dangers, and the Great House should be well aware of them and be ready to weather them and where possible to exploit them. So that's one here. If you have an annoying uncle who goes, the world is ending, then you want to kind of utilize, maybe say that paranoia or however you want to see it. And just I mic is default. Let me just apologies. I'm just going to make sure my microphone is working. Like I've been trying a few new things, so just to making sure here. So yeah, to the same thing with Dotting grandmother, put her in charge of something where she can kind of have more contact with people and try to utilize, you could say, their people's strengths uh, or annoyances towards more productive goals. And of course, then you can have, as it's very common, and and you can see like in many other things. Classical examples, of course, is the biggest city in the country and the second biggest city in the country. Like a friendly rivalry there about different issues. For example, here in Czechia, when we speak of the second largest city in Czechia, we ask for fun. Sometimes we from Prague ask, Brno, what metro station is that again? And stuff like that. So you can have like fun like that. It should stick with the fun, and then again utilize those things. Still, sometimes there are troublemakers that will manipulate and abuse the family for their personal gain, and that will be in the next section. I'll talk about this. And I think that this is a bit lacking here. The section can be expanded more, but this will really depend on the leadership of the great house to manage these things, to, you could say, so that there is, say, internal peace. Sometimes it will mean that compromises will be made, or pretty much always that's the reality of human life or human condition, and in society. And that's kind of like the big point of it. And if you have questions or you want me to address something specifically about this, I'll be happy to do so. And it's not just the patriarch and matriarch or the heads of the families, but on everybody to kind of work around it. The big thing is, or the big danger is, if you don't manage this well, it's the same thing like with any country. If you don't manage the state of politics well, and then thing eventually either lead to breakup, civil war, or other bad things. So, and again, that's the general, that's state of any group. If you have like say a circle with other people where you meet and do some activity, if you don't if you don't maintain that, if you don't maintain those activities, then eventually it's going to fall apart, or other people will take over. So those, you have to consider this in everything. I don't think I'm saying here anything, I would say that's not well known already. So feel free to ask me any questions in the chat. If you are in one of my GitHub sponsors, check out and you have provided me with an email through GitHub or otherwise, then check out your email. You should have a link there, so I can join you on the streams and you can contribute or ask me questions directly. So difficulties. So you can see by the formatting, this section has still a lot of review to do. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing these sections or these readings. Everybody should get some tea. So Suffering and struggle is normal for the human condition. Don't get lulled into complacency because things are good now. That's the, say, main point of the Great House, that you should pretty much always realize. If everything was hunky dory and we're constantly living through golden ages where we have times of plenty, never were lacking for any money, then say this thing could be just a fun side project that you could abandon at any time. You don't feel like it's providing you anything. But the main thing here with the Great House is it's multi-generational thinking, looking ahead, and through times of plenty being ready for times of crises, or at least be aware of them and be prepared as much as is reasonable. We'll never ever be prepared for any difficulties or crises that come, but just through preparation, that's going to give you tremendous boost. And kind of with this, the Great House could say unification, or having this, could say, larger group of people working together for the good of family. It's your blood relatives, so it's you're just by nature close to them. So that means hopefully things should get be easier to do and work together easier. But it's not always the case. So let's talk about these problems. Abuse. All that the Great House provides is based on reciprocity and goodwill. If this is abuse, it will endanger the entire family. Can also always think, if you cannot really imagine Great House thing of a nation, a lot of these things work similarly. Ideally, this behavior would be rooted out during childhood and teenage years. Still, people are people, and due to other influences, corruption might occur, and the system and family might be taken advantage of by malicious members or by family friends. Things will be uncomfortable for most due to the close familial ties. To prevent things from escalating, mitigating steps need to be taken as soon as possible. So, where you see some problem forming, there is, step in, speak up, start solving the issue. It's a very common problem, and it's difficult. Very difficult, especially as I said, with because we're family ties, so you don't want to, be, nor should you be confrontational about things. But if you allow things to proceed, say without confrontation or adjusting things, it may get even worse. What steps are taken will depend on the structure of the Great House. For branched families, the main family will have to take charge of the situation, or the branch families will have to take steps to rein in excesses of the main family if it occurs. In more formal structure, there should be clear rules on how to proceed in addressing the problem. So the more formal, you could say, everything is, the more established anything, then you'll have kind of rules of how to proceed, and how to manage things. So in this case, I'm talking here about, okay, if there's issue with branch family, then you have the main family to step in, and vice versa. If the main families have excesses, then the branch families or people step in. So first, though, should be an informal warning to the offending party to correct their behavior. In normal circumstances, that should be enough to correct the behavior. If things continue, then additional steps will have to be taken. It might often be difficult to articulate the offenses, but that is needed, and that is why everyone in the family should have a good grasp on the family values to be able to do so. The main family should be well aware of grooming and manipulative behaviors to be able to spot them early and take preventative measures. This will require studying the area of dangerous people and how they take advantage of other people. So knowing how con artists operates, this is not just, so that you can deal with potential troublemakers in the family, but also because this is not just internally, but also for external issues to consider. So if you know how con artists operate, you can watch. It can be of help and kind of be the guardian for the elderly people in your house, or be a resource for anybody who might think you might be dealing with that, or you can kind of see maybe from how people are behaving if they are dealing with something like this, and be able to step in. And there's a lot of potential issues and dangers, and again, that's where the having larger numbers where people can specialize in, so that you don't have to know everything, or try it, because you never can study all those things. It's That's why you can go very quickly crazy if you try to manage all of this on your own. That's where the larger number comes into being. And also, when you start a grand house, you're kind of starting a family. Don't try to do all this crazy structure at once. Allow it to grow, and especially with your children, because who knows if that's going to be the perfect structure for you as well. So as you are starting, you're more flexible, and can kind of form things through. So I will probably need to think of better managing this section or organizing. But other difficulties, problems might occur if someone embraces values that are antithetical to the family. By definition of everything here, that would be ideologies that desire to replace or destroy the family, like communism, feminism, and similar, say, totalitarian and collectivist ideologies. Another set is ideologies that harm family members, like transgenderism, which is a subset of, say, neo-communism, or religious cults. In case of religious cults, because they supplant the family, or they eat up the entire one family unit into itself. At best, these ideologies and members support and espousing them will attempt to hijack existing structures to propagate their ideology and move the family resources to other organizations that have nothing to do with the great house, or physically harm family and house members, which is the case with transgenderism especially. So one has to be very wary of these, and what one would also could potentially call revolutionary ideologies, or that we need to overthrow someone, or do something more. The idea with the great house is that the great house, when it comes to these things, the ideas, the values of a great house are above everything, and pretty much what does not conform to those values has just no place in the great house, but I would say also in your personal life. And I went through a few of these, could say, phases myself, so quite know what kind of they do. These ideologies often employ flowery language and other feel-good tactics to gain support. It is therefore important during upbringing to teach children to be skeptical and distrusting of ideas that sound and look nice, as they often bring unimaginable suffering. Family members should be constantly on the lookout for grooming attempts, not just by usual child grooming, but also from religious and ideological cults. Everyone needs to be aware of the slippery slope, love bombing, and other methods that they employ. Oftentimes, it's said that slippery slope is a logical fallacy. In, could say, formal debates, it is not something that, or it's not an argument that you can make. Sadly, especially through my life, what I've kind of seen is that slippery slope is very real. It's, especially if you have some, let's say, cult or cultish people behind it that have, as I said, a revolutionary goal. But even like that's the big issue. You can have good, well-meaning people that gonna do the initial push, but eventually, once they, you know, say, win their what they want, their main primary goal, that's why they started it. Those people leave. They are no longer interested because they got what they wanted, and then the, you know, let's say, cultist, activists and other people who have further goals take over, hijack, you could say, the name of the organization or of the movement and start pushing it into, let's say, going down the slippery slope of what was maybe some opponents originally warned against. So that's one thing. Love bombing is a good one to know about, and I would say it's like very insidious, and especially works well with against introverts or people who don't have that much contact with others. But even on regular basis, the idea of love bombing, and again, please read more about it, just also for your own, for also safety, that if you do something and kind of, or meet something that they, they just, go, oh, I love you so much, or you're amazing, blah 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 blah, constantly, like, giving you praise. And for example, then if you like decide to do something and then you have doubts, then they go, oh, I believe in you, you can do this. And constantly positive, words and feeling towards you. And you know sometimes not necessarily in excess, but oftentimes in excess. So, and that can easily happen on social media, where if you post it, then the entire world has access to it, and you have, normally you would have, say, only one person in your local area, but through the social media, through the internet, suddenly the entire world, people across the entire world who might be just one person in their community, they can come, together, and it might seem bigger, and also they can give you more of, you could say, love and love bombing. And then it's just like, see, oh, there's like so many people who, like me, what I do, and push me towards what I want to do. So that's, things to be aware of. The biggest problem with these things and the other tactics is if you are the victim, unless you are aware of and are uh, in a way, and are not, I would say, impeded in any ways, then you will be able, to at least recognize it. If you have some impediment, or if you're not aware of these things, then you can fall victim to these as well. Happened to me as well. I just say, on antidepressives, which lowered my, could say, resistance barrier towards things, and things that I would normally, you know, you know, get out, don't bother me, or stuff like that. I was kind of more, say, I lowered my guard, and bad things happened. So one of the, I could say, takeaways from that was that I will never be on antidepressants unless I will be then, let's say, in a place where I will have a good chance that nobody's going to be able to come to me with some things that they could take advantage of me, because I just don't react well to it. So, these things, and a lot of these things you sadly learn through bad experience, but still, having the knowledge about these things is half the fight. And yeah, we have a nice rainbow here outside as we speak about the bad things that can happen in life. But that's life, and that's, big part of it is being ready for it. That's hopefully something that you gain, and as you learn about as you grow up, especially in your teenage years, where you are much changing from child to an adult. So number 3, dangers. As much as the great house has benefits, it also might present dangers. Uh, as with anything, you know, especially if people with bad intention takes over, they can just turn it into hell. And in this case of great house, this is due to centralization of the house, which allows the enemies of the house to quickly identify and attack house members. This danger becomes even more likely if there is any political involvement by the house members in politics, or if the house is located in a country with a totalitarian system or antagonistic culture. Historically, it was the deep involvement in the Games of Thrones that destroyed many houses. Involvement in politics and similar should be carefully considered together with potential dangers, as those should be mitigated as well. So one of the family rules that we have is no involvement in politics. And as I said here, getting into the arena of politics is dangerous. If one member gets into politics, then thanks to the, could say, the centralization of the great house. But even without it, if you become of any media interest, people will track you down. They will track, your family members and all that stuff. So getting into that, you have to carefully consider it. It's, since you are going to, even if you don't want to, it's still going to happen. You're going to drag everybody else in the family into it. So it's not something that you should be just talking alone. As I mentioned there, due to the centralization, but of course, I would say kind of for all families is it will be easy for, let's say, enemy forces, let's just use that term, to potentially track you down or your entire family with that. So that's very dangerous if you are in a culture that's antagonistic towards, the ideas of the great house, or in a totalitarian country, which, will see any things like a great house as a danger to it, or potential danger to its power. So it will, anytime there's like any political shaking or anything like that, you are most likely to get targeted. It has many other issue, but that's also why I said previously, any totalitarian ideologies are enemies of the great house because of this. And historically, look at a lot of the feudal families. They've lost lands. They've lost, sometimes they got completely wiped out because they lost the Game of Thrones in the medieval Europe or elsewhere. So in this, could say, iteration is to kind of stay away from politics, unless that is something that you want to really pursue and are ready for what it entitles or entails. That's the word I'm looking for. So be very wary about this. I would say it requires a lot of strength, also a lot of financial muscle as well, because when that comes, or even like in general, like, if you get any media attention, a lot of the things that you can enjoy now, so for example, like traveling in the public, you won't be able to do, because if you become any significant media attention, you will get stalkers, you get people who want to hurt you, or it's not pretty. So that's one of the reasons, for example, why a lot of famous, or pretty much any famous people, especially once they become internationally famous, use private planes, because they cannot go on a normal plane, because you never know if somebody is going to recognize you at the airport or anything like that. There are ways how to do it, but eventually it becomes much cheaper for you and easier, and gives you much peace of mind to travel via private plane. especially like in the beginnings. It's actually even from what I've heard, it's even worse than traveling, could say first class. Uh, so most people don't travel private planes out of luxury. A lot of people travel out of necessity, and the same thing will apply to everything else. Before you could take, a bus or a train. That will no longer be possible, and you will have to get a car and private car and travel with through that. So again, there is a lot more once you become of any fame, and as much, and that's like another thing. If you want to go that route, you have to be at least definitely have some narcissism in you to be able to do that, and also handle this not that much thing. And that's why you see also a lot of, you could say, children who get famous. Most of them don't end well, and that's also a lot of the times because of the adults around them, and oftentimes in the entertainment industry. uh, let's just say I have not heard the good things that happened there. So uh, the same thing, for example, with people who win lottery. Usually within a year, they've lost all that money and are where they began. uh, or people who just quickly gain fame. So you know small steps, and we'll study up and make sure that you know what you're going into, and hopefully how to mitigate certain things. And in this case, in case of fame, that can also be something where family can help you, again, protection, and keep you grounded as an individual. But it definitely will be a strain on the family to be aware of. So big thing that I always highlight with the great house is being prepared for disasters. History is full of disasters, be they natural or man-made. The great house must never fall into thinking that nothing big is going to happen. This goes from family only effects like failure of the family business, death in the family, theft, to massive earthquake, political unrest, or wars. So, um, again, during times of plenty, prepare for times of crises. Uh, this should be the case for any family or individual to be at least aware of the local dangers and be prepared for them. For example, people living in Japan have emergency bags ready in their home in case they would have to quickly abandon their home due to an earthquake or other natural emergency. Um, and it's not just like in the homes. For example, offices, they have under their desks, there are like prepare helmets and emergency food rations. Of course, not everywhere. It really depends on the region. If you have a region where there's more earthquakes, then you are more prepared because you have that reminder more often. If you are in a region where there is less earthquakes, probably less because out of sight, out of mind. Um, so those are things that you need to constantly remind yourself, especially when things are good, to be prepared and ready for. The Great House should continuously analyze different risks and have contingency scenarios prepared and the needed materials as much as possible practicable. While no plan is going to work when the real crisis arises, planning and preparing is indispensable. At the very least, you will not freeze in shock, uh, given the circumstances, as you have an idea on what to do and have expected it at least. That's a big one. A lot of people, when they encounter something, crisis, that because they have not even thought of the possibility, they just freeze and are unable to move. Um, which, for example, in a bear attack is pretty good because if that person freezes, the bear is going to eat that person and you can escape. Uh, bit morbid, but you don't want to be the one that freezes. You want to be aware of these things, but you don't want to be too aware that you freeze to indecision or okay, which one should I prepare to? But again, planning and being ready for that is half the battle. Learning skills like first aid or survival training are always useful, and activities in analyzing and preparing for possible emergency scenarios can become a good bonding experience, or you can at least create a camping trip out of it. So that's like another thing when preparing for these. For example, if you buy emergency rations, uh, they are like good for like 5 to 10 years, but eventually you have to eat them, especially if, hopefully, if you haven't used them. And at that point, why not go on a camping trip uh, to also to eat those emergency rations, to try out all your emergency equipment, to try out building a tent. The same thing, uh, okay, we are all going, say, I don't know if they're like 5 cousins or something like that, and decide, okay, let's go and take this first aid kit together. It's and then afterwards we are going to go to pub or hang out and have fun. So you can make that into again another bonding activity or something to enjoy together. It doesn't have to be, or it shouldn't be doom and gloom. It should be something that you just do to learn new things, interesting things, because you never know where you're going to need it. That's one thing. And who knows, maybe you discover something more about yourselves. And uh, I think it's never lost these to know these things, because bad things happen all the time. As I said, always be ready for the unexpected. And it doesn't mean that you're always going to get it right. For example, you'll be ready for an earthquake and everything. And the earthquake happens, everything is fine, but then suddenly landslide happen and levels your home, which you didn't expect. So that can happen. uh, so it's also like constant analysis and updating of possible uh, possible threats. And then maybe if you're like a Elon Musk level in the unlikely scenario, you might be thinking, okay, what happens if there's asteroids? How quickly can I get the rockets up so we can escape, and so that humanity can survive, all that stuff. Or it can then be used in this case for opportunities. So say you have like a rocket ready for your bag out. Oops, apologies, didn't want that. Bag out, then, and suddenly like a golden asteroid comes by. You just change the equipment inside, and we'll go mining and get a lot of gold. Those things can be used for also opportunities as well. All right. Any questions, suggestions, anecdotes, other things, and especially like with these, like learning first aid and so on, you will learn in case of first aid to analyze a crisis scenario, and so that and that will help like in other things as well, so that if somebody collapses, you don't immediately rush to them, because people have to kind of analyze, okay, why did they collapse? Is there like anything around them to indicate some problem? And then you can realize, okay, this is a gas leak, so I actually cannot help that person. I need to get out of here and get the professionals in and stuff like that. So a lot of useful skill around that. The same thing with learning martial arts and so on. So while sip some tea and get some cookies so I don't starve. Any questions, ideas, or anecdotes? Share them in the chat, or if you're a sponsor on GitHub with me, you should have a link to join me. Mm-mm-mm. If not, we'll move to the next point. Mhm. And that is legacy. And Hmm. I would say this is the main kind of point of family in general, and great house in particular. Especially if you are the starting one, and even if you're part of great house, is to leave some legacy. Say if you have a hallway with famous ancestors, you want your picture to be there for everybody. Children are a lot about, or should be about, your legacy. So let's read this short saying here together. The work is the mission. The family is the mission and goal. A major part of having a family is to leave a legacy behind. Often this is reduced to just having children. While that is important, even more important is to raise the children well, which I have described a lot previously. It is also important that the family keeps records of each individual's trials, successes, and even failures, so that to keep record until perpetuity. I think I forgot here is so that others can learn from it, and to keep records until perpetuity, and hence keep the person's legacy, but also through that offer learning moments for the descendants. I have to rephrase this sentence here, because you want to keep successes, failures, and when you keep the failures, you want to keep them in particular as a lesson, something to be learned from that. Because there's no point in keeping failures, or like everyday failures, like, oh, okay, this investment didn't work out, or this bet didn't work out, or you can have you know these 100 bets didn't work out. uh, you know the point to learn from this is, don't do betting on horses based on the entrails of a snake or something like that. um, those so lessons, or can be more pronounced lesson. And yeah, the question for you, Chad, is what are some of the failure lessons that you would like to your family to keep on. One of the big one, and that's, or I would say that's the entire reason for this, is to for me to sort out my ideas, what I want, and uh, kind of put all those things that I've learned together. Some of these things I've written here are through hard-earned, say, failures. Another big one for family in general would be, about choosing the correct mate. So it could be lessons about, say, warning signs in people and what to avoid. But that is also very temporary, so you will have to look more into, say, long-term stuff. Always believe that the best days are ahead and work to prepare a good foundation for those days. So, especially if you are beginning, the beginning of the great house with your family, obviously the best days of the house are ahead. Once there's more people, once the children grow up and they marry, and the house grows and the resource of the house grows, of course the best days are ahead if you can now prepare a good foundation, which is critical. Having the good foundation, and you need them to have even greater, golden age, or you know be stable during dark times. So another interesting thought, and this is going to be very, I would say, culture specific, is about honor. In many societies, there is a notion of personal and family honor, while in modern times, uh, dismissed as an anarchic thing. Phrase is probably better. Thing that only leads to abuse. It is important for the great house. The importance is a preventative measure. One tempers their impulses and thinks more deeply about their actions and how they could potentially impact the family honor in addition to their own reputation. At the end of the day, honor often is another word for reputation. So, you know, don't do stupid stuff. Uh, think more through your things and how that is going to impact, everybody's looks on you. Careful thought should be considered about how to incorporate this into one's great house, especially where the idea of honor or family honor doesn't exist in the wider society. The main goal during upbringing is to teach children that their actions have an impact on others and they should be considerate of that. So, if you're in society where it's being frowned upon us, like that, then it is not going to be a good idea to really work too much about it. Another thing about let's actually finish this before I get into tangents of stuff because it might be written here. So when certain actions of family or family members become atrocious and shine negative public attention on the house itself, on the house, it should be the house itself needs to take action. Actually, there should be comma there. Action needs to be taken, starting from reprimands to potential exile from the family, and that's very not in the complete sense. Also, but it depends on how you set things up. In the cases of atrocious crimes like child trafficking or human rights violation, or more drastic measures will need to be taken. Hopefully, something that should never need to be considered, which is another thing why, again, you should probably stay away from politics or other professions where this could happen. While the exceptions of the most atrocious of behaviors and crimes, with the exception, of the most atrocious behaviors and crimes, there is also needs to be a path to redemption. As such, exile from the company should be seen as forcing the person to go on a path of repentance, company, or in this case, family. For example, they will join a religious order or do other repentance, what probably suits best your society. Following that would be restoration of their personal honor and reputation. Once that is achieved, other family members should petition the main family for that individual or branch to rejoin the great house. So, unless it's like so atrocious that seppuku is required at that point to restore the honor, there should be way to repentance, to restore, to be able to be restored and to come back into the house. It's and this is not not for individual also, but for branches. So as I mentioned, maybe joining a monastic religious order, or other ways. And again, depends on how you set it up, depends on your culture, but it is important that you give, there is some way for forgiveness for people. Again, unless it's so atrocious that in order to restore honor and forgive, then it's the only way is seppuku if we go with the Japanese tradition. Hopefully, again, that's the most extreme, and I don't wish that anybody would have to go through that. Fiction often has examples of family members fighting for their family honors with those who have insulted it. Such a thing is absolutely unnecessary these days, and oftentimes would land you in a jail. Often an insult doesn't even warrant a response, as it will come from individuals with no honor or social standing themselves. That if this is a public attack, response might be needed, but for the most part, severing any and all ties with the attacker is sufficient. The goal here is to be above such petty squabbles as family. Uh, so again, a lot of fictional examples of fighting for family honors and provoking by insulting the honor of the house. And as I said, especially in today's day and age, it is absolutely unnecessary. Most of the times, the people who do that don't have, as I write here, social standing or anything remotely that you would have to worry about. If it's from a public figure or a journalist, then that's a different story. But even in most cases, you know, just saying, okay, this person is person non grata, so complete ban of any communication or anything to do with that person. Oftentimes is enough, or it could be okay if the journalists approach us. They're just no, just go. I'm not talking with you. They're just smear merchants or something like that. Just don't. Interacting is for the most part fine. But again, that will require, in that cases, then you are in completely advanced great house, and things start operating a bit differently. So more thought, and at that, I'm not at a point where I can even attempt to advise you. I can kind of generate some advice from what I've seen through the years. I will be probably generating or I'll be writing up at some point some and gathering resources how to deal with you could say smear campaigns and other things for writers here at Literary Universe, because that's again, it once you become of some note, there are always people who are going to do that, even if they themselves don't get anything from that. It's very strange sometimes, the behavior. So that's it's that's like for another big discussion, and I think we'll have that discussion probably on Literary Universe stream at some point. So getting here closely to the end, let's check. Other thought is pretty much second to last chapter here. Good predicting so far. Any thoughts, questions, guys? Don't be shy. It makes it more interesting if you write something. Okay. So some this like other thoughts is some general thoughts at the end. Before my final notes. Maybe I'll have to probably kind of merge that together. This is, as I said, this was just my initial stream of consciousness, you could say, a little bit more structured, and it will require rewrite and more structuring as things go. Maybe also a little bit back to honor itself here. So I mentioned a lot of time it's reputation. So you want to protect that, because then having good reputation can open doors for you in many places and for family. So you want to make sure that if your family name is mentioned, that it indeed opens the doors for that family members. Big part of that is then that you as that family members then have to make sure that they perform to expectations. So that's why sometimes having too much of a reputation or too big of an honor can be not so good for some members, especially. And that's also why you have to then support them, because you will have the imposter complex even more, and they will feel like they need to perform maybe too much, and it might not be so necessary. So things can, with any human interactions, get complicated super fast, and for every good thing that can also bring a bad thing. Um, so, but the important things here is, with the great houses, not to coast through things, but to think deeply about them and act to create better outcomes. So some other thoughts here: teens acting up in their puberty has been excused as normal, but looking especially back at my puberty and a bit around, it seems to me that it is just a manifestation of issues in our society, especially looking historically as well. Specifically, in failure of parents to provide clear structure, history, meaning, and aspirations to children. There's also a cry for attention, as parents often put their children to kindergarten, then other institutional learning. Both work all the time, which results in children seeing their parents in the mornings and evenings only, if even that sometimes. There's also the aspects of especially young boys trying where the boundaries are and often finding them lacking. So that's again uh, more of a advice of upbringing to provide again clear boundaries, be there for children. The aspiration kind of with the great house is that you are very much involved in children upbringing and the wider family is, so that you as a parent don't go crazy from that. So you have aunts, grandmothers, or grandparents in general be there so that you can put them there. And big thing is, as I said, I often find, especially looking back, that a lot of the stuff was kind of coasting through my upbringing, and I often have the time to, in my case, since I was history buff and uh, wasn't like really rebellious in any sense. Well, I was a little bit, but nothing like crazy, especially compared to my sister in many ways. A lot of funny stories there. Uh, I found, but there was a lack of values being transmitted because, say, historically, since family were much more involved with each other, uh, there wasn't really that much thinking because a lot of these things were transferred through osmosis. And also, the families were a lot more together, so they got a lot more to talk about these things. Um, and it was following, you could say, some certain tradition, which is in many cases, I would say, overwhelming majority of cases, especially here in the West, lacking. And unless you really put the effort today as a parent into figuring out how to, raise your children, and a lot of the advice, especially I would say a lot of the modern, you could say, advice of how to raise children uh, has a lot of ideological messaging in it, or ways how to do for specific ideologies, and the results I'm not not impressed. So a lot of talk. So again, this is again part of the great house to think about these things deeply, to have a plan, and kind of establish the legacy, history, tradition, and in general, pretty much raise well-rounded human beings that make you proud. And I'll talk more about this specific, or one of the, let's say, inspiration for this part specifically is from Jordan Peterson, uh, 12 Rules for Life. It's correct. I have it in my resources here. And yeah, one of them is to raise your children so that you don't hate them when they're adults. So because at the end, it is, you cannot blame anybody else uh, for that, because if you leave them to go into kindergarten, school, and all those things, they are going to pick up there, especially in kindergarten and early school. Uh, they're going to pick up what's pretty much what the authority figures there are going to tell them. So you need to be at the minimum aware and being able to somehow countermand that. But even then, it's going to be difficult. So selecting, schools that follow your values is of big importance as well. So final notes. Big paragraph, should probably split it up. The Great House offers some suggestions for the ambitious on how to structure a family for greater success. This initial version is far from perfect, and even future versions will never be able to provide a definitive guide, as everyone's situation is different, and with different goals and situations, there is a need for customizations or customization. Hence, these are all suggestions, and it is the belief of the author that incorporating just a few of them could lead to significant improvements of well-being. It also requires heavy involvement in parenting and family management, as I just described. Uh, this came from years of authors' discovery of their own family history, which had much legacy and history to offer. But much of that was missing in the current family situation, most likely as a result of the suppression under communist rule and deep scars that it left on the family. Further impetus was the author's parents' divorce and general societal hostility towards family through culture, where fathers are often portrayed as bumbling idiots, and general anti-family sentiment thanks to feminism, the feminists, the last generation, Green, and other movements. With increasing age and without family, the authors had to write down and organize their thoughts on this matter, as their expectations of family are grander than what it is today. Finally, there is a desire of the author to be clear what he is looking for in the future wife and mother of their children. So that's kind of describing my reasons why I built this. Uh, I think it's all there. Feel free to ask questions about this. And really don't have I think anything to add here. What to add here? Also for my family, I will probably have like a more bigger guide. I will that has specifics of what I want, so I gonna have this more general, because then when I start drafting the specific, it will be with my wife, which I hope I meet soon. So because it's not just one person effort, it's at the minimum two people together, and then once I have children, that they also are going to have input on it. As I in previous streams, as I said, it lot of things that come in. Say can have family animal that you then sponsor at the zoo, or that you can then go and have a lot of games out of this, or you can go on camping trip while you eat the emergency rations. It can also be, and it can not just be like fun trip, but especially if the rations are not that good, you want to kind of show the children and how they should appreciate what's normally on the table, and how they should work hard so that they don't have to open them again in a way. So off to recommended readings. This is something that I will be expanding. It's not just recommended readings, but resources and inspirations. I will be expanding as I encounter interesting things and put things together. I will be also expanding or adding more information as I age. Hopefully, have my family so that I can help and provide inspiration for people who come after me. or who have similar ambitions. So let's start with some recommended readings. First, here is The Jewish Family, Between Family Law and Contract Law. Very heavy. This book explores the legal and contractual aspects of Jewish family life, running insight into the strong family values and cohesion within the Jewish community. Remember, at the very beginning, I talked as the Jewish community and the Jewish family as one of the possible super successful multi-generational examples of how planning of things, you could say, with some of them, especially as the next one is the House of Rothschild, money prophets, and the kind of their early years. The same thing with the Bronfmans, the rest of the House of Segram, which was their family company. So these are amazing examples to look through. I would say the first one especially is a bit heavy, and that is if you want to get more really into the nitty gritty and more into more formalized things, especially also in regards to religion. Another one is from Harrington, Feminism Against Progress. I think the title says it all, and I still have to finish reading that one. From Machiavelli, The Prince, a classic. Link is here to the Project Gutenberg. Don't even think about it. It's just important, like to understand more of the medieval places, but in many cases, it is it can be useful in today's day and age in many other, or at the very least, you might understand how some people, especially when it comes to politics, might be thinking, and that's always invaluable. Then let me actually pick this up for the next one. And I can probably, if you want, from that, but next two are from Jordan B. Peterson, 12 Rules for Life, and then Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life. Rule 5, I would say especially, which is, again, raise your children so that you don't hate them as adults. If I was to, at least that's kind of my takeaway from that, from Rule 5. Definitely good in general to know. The same thing with 12 More Rules for Life. Given the track record, I'm actually still reading the first one. I haven't read the second one, but I can already recommend it just based on the first one and who Jordan B. Peterson is. So if you then want to go more in depth, and I'm looking for this once I have a little bit more time, is Maps of Meaning, The Architecture of Belief. So that's more into looking into say all the meanings, symbolism, and a lot of the other things of the classics that we have. So that might, especially once you start working, say you go more on the symbolism and the meanings of your family, this is it. But it's also much heavier, more, you could say, academic work. Then from Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. Pretty much, you could say, anecdotes and advice from a Roman emperor. Very, very insightful and interesting. This is part of that is also to be chill about stuff. Here, more into the fictional and fun and inspiration, you could say, how they're gonna be of a person I actually quoted from this wiki for Veg Antilles, the Legends version, not the Disney crap, and how he then has his family and how his approach is. So definitely, but in general, super interesting character, and he's my favorite probably characters from the Star Wars stuff. So then from Emmanuel Todd, I have here 4 books, which I'm looking really forward to, and which to read in more details and incorporate more of that into this as well. The first one, The Divisive of the World, Family and Modernity, originally saw, and that's in the next section, a video that was based on it, and that in effect, some of the things that I described here are taken from there. So that's a French sociologist. Then for recommended watchings, Summer Wars, very much inspirational. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Good family movie. It really showcases how, if you have the wider family with different professions, how they can then come together, pool resources to achieve a common goal, and all that stuff. So very nice. Then from Lotus Eaters, a premium, but you can find probably a lot of other clips on that. How daycare will destroy the West. That's one of the, say, arguments I have against daycare on that stuff. So definitely worth a look. And general other content from Lotus Eaters also is a strong inspiration. Then the Bird Gap documentary. If you can, the first part is for free, and pretty much that is why you shouldn't worry about having many children, or why you should have more children, at least 3 or more. Then I have from another YouTuber how Japan's dating culture has changed in relationship to the birth rate issue. So, and that's also very insightful. Another anime here, My Happy Marriage. So that's more fantastical. Kind of showcases some of the bad aspects that you can have in a great house, but also at the same time how you can salvage that. Many interesting things in there. So wouldn't necessarily put it like as a top watch, but definitely interesting in that aspect. And then kind of going back to the Emmanuel Todd, the Divisor of the World, Family and Modernity, that was mentioned in this YouTube video, how family structure drives ideology. So that can be like a quick summary, plus with some additional information and critique from the author there. So that's it. That's all I have. I think to be continued here. The next chapter is released really soon. Sadly, there's not going to be any new chapter. I should probably, once I finish the review of the text, so it's a little bit better, then I will mark this as finished. It will not be finished. I will be updating, as I mentioned before, through my life, hopefully, and I hope that you can comment, provide feedback, provide maybe some insights, and I'll be happy to respond to it, incorporate it into the text. And I think I will return to this next year, or maybe later. If some people read it, or that would like to have a, say, public discussion about these things, I would be more than happy to do a stream and chat more about this. And with that leaves me at, if you have any live if you have any questions, suggestions in the chat, I'll have a little bit more time, finish my tea here, If not, again, if you're watching, especially if you're watching this as a recording, feel free to leave a comment while at it. Also, give me a like on the video so that other people can find it a bit easier to find this video. Mhm. And if not, we'll be ending this soon. So that's that. And I think that is kind of the main finish for my channel, for the main non-technical, I could say, stream. I will want to do at least one non-technical stream a month, just to keep training fresh. Next month, it's either going to be related to creative writing, or potentially next month I think I will have a guest with me, and we'll be talking about something that we want to do for a while, about technical accelerationism, which I have mixed feeling on. I like it from one side, and kind of the traditionalist in me hates it from the other, as we are moving to our technological dystopia. So that might happen, hopefully, and we shall see what else is going to come out of this. The rest, so usually, one non-technical stream, and then at least, hopefully, given how months get structured, 3 technical streams, most around Meteor, which will be coming back to next week with Meteor 3, all that stuff. Super excited. And with that, I will no longer be rambling. I will do one more thing here. Back to presenting. And that is, if you like what I'm doing, would like to support me, and want to see more, I have a sponsorship. This is primarily for the technical. I have on sponsorship on GitHub. So for technical people, you can sponsor me there. If you're a non-technical person or technological person, then I will be probably setting up my sponsorship this year for people as well, somewhere else on my personal website. And or actually maybe through Literary Universe for writing. So stay tuned. Again, everything helps, and every little helps and allows me to be more focused on these things. So with that, thank you very much for joining in today. Hope I'll get to read more of your comments as time passes. And I will see you Monday. Back to technical discussions, or maybe another non-technical stream if you prefer those. So thank you very much, and goodbye.